Hello everyone, I hope all is well. Please remember to like and subscribe to this channel. It takes a lot of time and effort to prepare the content. And this week, I want to share with you something that I have been thinking about for the longest possible while. As a matter of fact, I can contextualize this to 2010 during my time when I worked in the United Kingdom. The issue is inclusion, capitalism, and politics. We have looked at many things as it relates to inclusion, but have not really talked about the issue of capitalism, inclusion, and politics. We live in a democratic country, right? And everyone knows that. And we also live within the capitalist system. So, what I want us to do is to focus on a few points as I go through. And I want you to think critically because this might be a window to have a bigger conversation regarding inclusion. Because many people are discrediting the fact that we live in a system that was not designed for equality. So, let me begin by telling you about the focus points for this short presentation. I want to start off by giving a summary of what an inclusive society should be. And I also want to explain how our present system excludes individuals within our society. And finally, I want to examine how politics plays a part in the exclusion of individuals within our society. Follow me as I move on with my journey and talk about inclusion, capitalism, and politics. When we look at the phrase inclusive society, we need to understand that inclusion is a work in progress. It's not something that can be achieved in totality, as I've always stated in my presentations. An inclusive society is a system that tries to accommodate everyone. And I use the word tries because, as I stated before, inclusion is a work in practice. Now, it provides equal opportunity, or supposedly, because you know you cannot have equal opportunity for all, regardless of the system you're in. And as a matter of fact, if we look further, we can say it allows individuals from wherever they are in their lives to contribute to the society and allows individuals to, of course, integrate and to participate. The reality is that the ultimate goal of an inclusive society is that members in the society participate in the social, economic, and political engagement required for that society. There are many other factors that must be addressed in an inclusive society. For example, race, gender, class, and of course, the aspect of how opportunities will be created. Because the reality is, we want all members of the society to have a chance of succeeding at least. So that must be a key. To ensure an inclusive system, individuals must be motivated to participate in civil engagement and so forth. And it's essential this must be done at the national and both the local level. Before moving on to connecting inclusion and capitalism, let me define what is capitalism. In summary, capitalism is trade and industry controlled by private owners. People who are wealthy can influence and gain access to different resources and opportunities. In some societies, wealthy individuals pay less taxes, and of course, the tax burden might be on the middle class and the poor. There is the assumption that in the capitalist system, you'll have enhanced opportunities to succeed. But the reality, this might not be so. In looking back at India and looking at certain places across the world, if you were born in that area, what are your chances of moving out of the social caste or system? It is somewhat difficult. So, within the capitalist system, not everyone is going to make it to the top. As a matter of fact, we know in the capitalist system, it's based on competition. Reality is, as some will say it, the fittest will survive. There's also the thought that the system leads to greater choices. Yes, this might be so. However, do you have the access and the resources to access the system? Now, let me connect capitalism and inequality. In our present system, billionaires continue to increase their wealth, and the working class continue to struggle in many cases. And within this working population, those who are affected are severely affected. Let us not forget that there are other issues as it relates to the inequality within the population. This is connected to race, gender, and other variables. We know that. The reality is that the capitalist system, if you can afford it, you can have it. If you have the money, you can get the best healthcare. If you have the money or the wealth, you can access the best education system by even buying your way through, as we have seen in the United States. If you have the wealth, you can buy the most expensive cars, go on vacation, have experiences that others will not have, and so will your children. The bottom line is the capitalist system was never designed for equality. And that's the reality. Those who have and those who don't. And by the way, let us not forget that the capitalist system in the United States, England, and the Caribbean, of course, it was built on the back of slaves. And that's the reality. Within the capitalist system, it was never designed for equality. Hence, we have these plays up and down as it relates to compensation, wealth, and equal opportunities. Now, what is the connection between capitalism and inclusion? Now, let us examine both systems. A few years ago, I heard a professor from a prominent university in England stating that we cannot have an inclusive system when we have capitalism. I said to myself what exactly the professor meant by saying that. The professor was saying, for example, in my case, I'm teaching in England. I can afford to take my child to the hotel experiences and so forth, to the park, to travel externally. However, someone from a lower socioeconomic background cannot afford to have that experience or give his or her child that experience. So when the child sits down to take an exam or so forth, my child can write about the experience based on me giving that opportunity. For that child without the experience, they cannot write on what they've been asked to write about. So, having said that, there cannot be total equality within a capitalist system. So, how do we have inclusion when we have inequality? Is that possible? That's a food for thought. And I want you to think about it because can we have inequality and at the same time have inclusion in our society? I guess the answer is no. On reflection, in our divisive system of capitalism, we cannot have total inclusion. We aspire for inclusion, but at the same time, we need to understand and keep it real. And remember, those who have wealth will have greater educational opportunities than those who have limited resources. People who have greater access to capital will get better health care. And again, the capitalist system was made for people to profit. And that's the reality. Can we have inclusion within a capitalist system? The answer is no. Should we give up? The answer is no. Should we try to get a better way ahead? The answer is yes. Topping this all off is the issue of politics and inclusion. Within the capitalist system, you have politics playing along with those who have the power. And those who have the power want to exclude those at the expense of making profit. Do you understand what I'm saying? So many times our leaders are connected to these various capitalists who influence various policies because they want to profit. For example, we see where educational products are expensive, we see where internet cost is high. And today, the politics that shape our policies are implemented in our society. How can we have a total inclusive society if we have capitalism and politics and, of course, a level of inequality that goes right through the system? So the reality is, again, that capitalism, inclusion, and politics are all connected. Let's keep the debate real because, listen, I see some people working very hard as inclusion specialists and so forth. But let's remember we are in a capitalist system and it was created not for us to be included or for total inclusion, but for us to be somewhat excluded. Because remember, that's how you get the profit. My final thought is about the struggle for inclusive capitalism. I came across that word a couple months ago. While I struggle to understand the term within the context of inequality and what capitalism is, I have sort of understood the premise taking your own self interest within the context of doing good for yourself and the society. I kind of have a problem. Your self interest within the interest of society and so forth, that is always a factor that creates division. People taking their own self interest, protecting themselves at the expense of others. So I might not be on the right track with this because capitalism itself breeds inequality. So, how can we have inclusive capitalism within our context? Just my thought, keeping it critical, keeping it real.